Welcome to the MWA podcast. I'm Kyle and I'm joined by my co-host Sean. Today we're thrilled to welcome a very special guest and friend of the show, Brian Crano. Brian is a hobbyist woodworker and chairmaker, and by day a Hollywood director and writer. We'll be diving into his passion for woodworking as well as his upcoming feature film, I Don't Understand You, hitting theaters on June 6th. So welcome to the show, Brian.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's been absolutely fantastic. Brian actually sent us some screeners of the film, which we watched a week or so ago, and it was absolutely fantastic. It's a great film, and congratulations to you, Brian.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and we'll be talking. This is going to be an interesting episode. So we're going to be talking about woodworking, and Brian does some great work, and about his journey into woodworking. But we'll also be hitting, a little bit about the film business and filmmaking and stuff. So this should be an interesting episode. But before we get into that, let's give our patrons a thanks. So who do we have to thank this week?
Yeah, we like to give those big shout outs to our Patreon supporters. Today, we're shouting out our friend Joe Bass. Joe, thank you, sir, for being such a friend of the show and helping us out. And if you, listener, would like to join in supporting us like Joe does, you can go to patreon.com/MWA podcast and help us out there.
Yes. Thanks so much, Joe. So let's move on to what's in the shop. So, Sean, what are you working on?
Getting my legs back under me. And over the past weekend, I ran another half marathon, the local race here in Toledo, that I've done more than 10 times. Other than the times I ran the marathon, I've run the half pretty much every year since 2013. Not my best by any means, but the best in a couple years. So feels good.
Okay.
I told my friends, like, I was the jerk at the end. You'd have to know, like, it ends on the University of Toledo's football field on the 50-yard line. That's the finish line, and the stadium is elevated from the parking lot, kind of logically. To leave, depending on where you park, you have to go upstairs and stuff, and there are many people struggling to walk after races like this. And I double tap ran up the stairs after the race. Like, I'm feeling fine. But then the next morning I was like, oh yeah, my quads are sore. But no, nothing to write home about. But a fun race, another good local race, and been hitting the golf ball a little bit, and I'm glad to say that's looking, better. I didn't shoot well. I actually, oddly enough, after the race on Sunday, we always go out to lunch at some bar, and whatever, drink too. And the fiance of a friend of mine goes, "Hey, we golfing?" I went, "What?" And he immediately had his phone to his ear. He goes, "Yeah, do you have a tee time at 4?" So I ran a half marathon in the morning, and I played 9 holes at 4 o'clock the same day, which is kind of interesting.
And just drinking in between those two events.
Yeah. I got about 2 hours at home that I
got to recharge.
I sat quietly. I didn't sleep, but I sat quietly for a few hours. Had some coffee. I was doing all right. So yeah, not much in the making anything world other than making improvements in my own life. Kyle, how about you?
Let's see. What have I done recently? I modified my lathe stand. So I've had it for years, and when I built it, I guess I followed all the norms. I think the center of the drive center should come up to your elbow, and so I made it.
And remember the discussion, the debates. It's not quite pins tails, but it's like
it's
height for your
exactly. So I built it to that, and then after using it, I realized, well, my body's kind of weird. I got kind of a long torso and short arms and legs, and this needs to be higher.
Yeah, fair.
So anyway, so I ended up, I had some riser blocks I used for my bench. So I'd been putting those under my lathe for years, but it prevents my lathe from being mobile because I have casters on it, so you can raise or lower the casters. And so it really prevented it from being mobile. And since I'm doing all this reorg with my shop, I'd really like to get this thing mobile. So I need to raise it up about 3 inches. So luckily, the way I built it, it was pretty easy to do because the legs are nothing but 2 2x4s, basically glued and screwed together at a kind of makes like an L shape.
Right.
Okay. So those are what the legs were. So it was really easy just to make, 4 of those 3 inches tall. But the big thing about this lathe is the lathe I have on the stand is just a jet MIDI lathes. They're 12 by
22.
something like that. But I got the extension thing.
Okay.
I don't know how long mine is. Is what? I guess it's close to 36, something like that. 36 inches long, something like that. Which is also interesting because when I built the lathe stand, I built it before I got the bed extension. And when I got the bed extension, I've modified this more than once. I had to add.
It's kind of Frankenstein at this point.
Exactly. So anyway, but to get the lathe on the stand, what took me like an hour or so trying to fit the screws up through like 1.25 inches of plywood that's double laminated into the little screw that the lathe would cinch down on, and it was a mess. So that was the reason I've been putting this off, is what am I going to do? And then I thought, well, can I raise it high enough with one of my shop cranes to get under there with the domino? And I was able to do that. So
Oh,
that's what I
wow.
did. So I just raised the thing up in the shop crane, was able to get in there, and I put like 2 10mm by 50 dominoes in each leg. So I was able to get it high enough tilted where I could do one leg, then glue those in, then lower it, raise the other end.
Because from the one image I saw, it looked like almost the legs were 4x4. They're L.
Yeah, they're L shaped. Yeah, they look like 4x4s if you don't peek around the other side.
Right. But I was like, just like putting end grain extensions on there, I'm like, how the hell are you really joining these? Because that's just as liable to shake itself off its own ropes. But that makes sense if you got thick dominoes, long dominoes.
It'll be fine. And and what was also interesting is when I remounted the casters, the plate that these casters are on fit right over the joint. So actually I got it screwed into the old leg and then another screw into the new leg for each caster.
Cool.
So that even further cinches it down, so anyway, but yeah, that was the big thing I've done. Other than that, getting orders out, almost have my shop lights done as far as my renovation with all my lighting. So I've got 3 more fixtures to do. Hopefully I'll get to that later on this week, and then I'll be fully in the LED world. So
all right.
Anyway, and it's made a huge difference. I've done pretty much 3/4 of the shop at this point, and it's just made a huge difference as far as the lighting. But I'm starting to become a lighting snob because I got in one area today and I was like, I could use another light right up here.
You're gonna find all the shadow spots.
I like my shop to be something like as bright as the surface of the sun.
Yes.
In all areas.
So you don't cast any shadows.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Now I am going only 5,000 Kelvin. I didn't want something too blue. I didn't go 6,000. But I was thinking about that day. Can you just replace my entire ceiling with like some big LCD panel that it's like 10,000 lumens?
Yeah, you can absolutely do that
in sheets. Yeah, you can just have it just be a white surface. Glaring down on you.
Yeah, I don't know what that would cost, but I'm pretty sure you're familiar with all kinds of lighting options, Brian.
Yeah, I know a guy for sure.
Yeah, you know a guy.
Yeah.
So, with that said, Brian, what are you working on in your shop?
Okay, so I had this big walnut slab, which I'm turning into a bench, which is over here. So that's kind of like an angular, weird bench that'll go in front of a window. That I saw sort of a picture that I'm kind of basing it off of, and then just sort of adapting it to my kind of taste. And then I'm building my first commissioned thing, commissioned for someone other than my husband, which is like a haberdashery cabinet, which has like 16 drawers and a glass front. And so I'm just making 1 billion drawers right now. So that's like just a drawer making shop at the moment.
And haberdashery is a hat maker, right? Or a hat maker's shop?
So this is for a boot maker there's a boot maker I've been following who's an amazing guy. His company's called Roll Club. They're like, a fortune and beautiful handmade boots. And I was on OfferUp looking to buy a sewing machine, thinking like, I want to try and build a pair of boots. And I see this sewing machine, and this guy's real name is Brian also. And I recognized his name, and I reached out and I said, hey, would this be a good sewing machine to try out this and see if it's good? And then he wrote me immediately back without answering, and just being like, are you a woodworker? Because I had a couple of woodworking tools up on OfferUp, and I was like, yeah. And then he sent me this picture of this cabinet, and he was like, "Can you build this?" And I was like, "Sure." And I was like, "I have no idea. I can't even see the picture very well." But yeah. And then he sent me a better picture, and I was like, "Yeah, I could do that." And so it's pretty cool. It's cool to be building something for somebody who also makes things and like gets it and like likes the detail and wants to talk about the curve and the joinery and all the stuff. So it's been a really cool way to ease into making stuff for other people.
That's awesome. Are you guys going back and forth on details, kind of like
Totally. Yeah, and he's been super open, but also like has certain things that he wants. I'll show you a picture of it. You guys can see. This is great for a podcast.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So it's basically, so it's if you walked up to let's say the south side of it, you would see a full face of drawers with handles, looks like a normal cabinet. And then if you peered over, it would be glass top and front with sort of cascading drawers that are 13, 15, 17, and 19 inches.
Yeah.
For the four rows. Yeah, it's a cool project to kind of figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
And do it outside of the genre of stuff that I tend to make for myself in my house.
Yeah. Now, what's he going to use it for? Is it just for storage of hats and whatnot, or
it's going in his retail shop? So they'll have like different shirts and laces and different patterns and soles for the boots that he makes that he can show people. And so it's a really cool.
Oh yeah, boots.
Cool
see, Sean said haberdashery, and you said haberdashery.
Well, yeah.
And I just locked in on hats.
Yeah, yeah. But
he's the style of cabinet.
Yeah, he's going to open up this new retail shop downtown LA in a little bit, and it'll be a cool feature of that.
That's awesome.
Shop.
So it's like either the first thing you see in, or when you're checking out, or something like that.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Well, way to get your name out there.
Yeah, it'll be great. And it's just
for that
it's
in
a
that
lot
way.
of fun. Yeah, for sure.
Well, cool. Well, Brian, for listeners, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, and how you got into both film directing and woodworking?
Wow. Okay. So my name is Brian Crano. I have
a problem.
I have a problem. I'm working through it. I'm a cancer. No, I have a 5-year-old. He's downstairs. He might pop up. I started in theater, and as many people in my business do, theater school, went to UCLA, and there, definitely loved what I was doing, writing and directing stuff, but also, they make you do all the different disciplines. So, learn how to sew costumes, learn how to do lights, all of it, and also build scenery. And so in that component, I started learning, basic tools and use a drill, use a saw, don't be scared, all that kind of stuff. And really liked it. And then would also do sort of like scenic model making. And then when I was 25, I realized like I didn't do anything I wasn't any good at. And so I thought, I should play guitar. I can't do that, but that would be cool to do. And then I went and I bought a bunch of guitars in a week. Like I bought one for no money and it was shitty and I returned it. And I bought another one and it was like slightly less shitty and I returned it. And I kept doing that until I got like a really nice handmade Gibson acoustic guitar. And then I by like that time, I just was so obsessed with it as an object and as a instrument that I was like doing all this research about like how a guitar worked and how it was made. And it was, there were things I could see that were similar, the bracing patterns and stuff that were similar to model making. It was like, I have thin strips of wood like this, accessible, like maybe I could do this. And then I found a class, where you go to Canada for 6 weeks, and this incredible luthier named Sergei John would teach you, how to build a acoustic instrument, sort of soup to nuts. And
wow.
I had
6 weeks. That's a commitment too. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. And I thought about it for a while, and then I set up my first movie that we were going to do, and we had a window in between knowing that it was going to shoot and when we would shoot the movie. And I asked my producer and mentor, like, should I go do this? And he was like, yeah, absolutely, go do this. You will not have any free time for 18 months. Like, go do this. And so I went up there, and to locate this in time, I was there when Obama got elected. So I was like
You're in that era.
26
Okay.
in that
Okay.
kind of time.
Yep.
And it was like the best, thing I'd ever done. I loved it. I had a certain affinity for, I had a certain skill for it. My hands were okay, and I wasn't scared of the routers or whatever, like I could do it, and I loved it, and I loved him. And it was, it was his whole family is in instrument making, and it was like you're living with these like wonderful Canadian hippies in the woods, and they're giving you vegetarian food, and then you're standing and doing something by yourself, which in the film business, you can't do anything by yourself.
Right.
Everything you do requires 150 people and a lot of somebody else's money. And I was like, oh, this is an amazing skill that if I could just, do this when I'm waiting for somebody else's money, like this would be a great way to, use your time. And so that really got me started into woodworking. Although, Lutherie, which is definitely woodworking, but I would say it's closer to model making than furniture making, just because the joinery techniques are all different, and you're using like such precise, there's such precise tolerances. And when I made my first chair or first anything, I was trying to do it to guitar spec, and it was like driving me fucking crazy because, I'm like, I can't get this giant hunk of wood to be exactly as perfect as these little thin plates. But so then I came back to LA, and we were cutting, made the movie, and my big plan was like, okay, while I'm making the movie, I'll build a shop and and etc. And then that was my first movie, and I underestimated how difficult it is to do it, and how much of your life is gone to whenever you make a movie, just sort of vanish. And then met my partner and now husband, and then one thing, then got busy in work and got a little bit more successful, and never built my shop. And then was making stuff and working all the time. And right before the pandemic, and right before we adopted our son, one day David, my husband, came into my office where I lived most of the time, sort of in the shape of my desk chair, and just went like, you do nothing you enjoy. He will come in and like make a pronouncement like this. It's like, why do you only work? And I was like, that's not true. And then I thought about it for a day, and I was like, you're right. It's completely true. I do nothing but sit at this desk and write things. And then he was like, well, what are you going to do about it? And I was like, we have a little sun porch that's like 80 square feet. And I was like, I'm going to take over the sun porch, and I'm going to build guitars by hand and see if I still like it. So I bought enough hand tools to do it, and a little tiny bandsaw. And I thought, okay, I'm going to start over. And I started doing, hand tool work, which I had never done. Because at Sergey's shop, we were using, table saw, planer, joiner, or whatever.
Sure.
And so I was doing everything by hand, and that was fine, but frustrating from the scale and size and speed. And I couldn't get everything as flat as I could if I had a wide belt sander or whatever. So, so after a little while, I realized we have this attic, which is like, I don't know, 1,000 square feet or something, that had truly nothing in it. And I was like, I now claim the attic.
You still kept the sunroom too, right?
Yeah, no, I gave it the sunroom. I was like, you can have the sunroom.
You got to have finishing space. You got to have finishing space.
It was smart. I went, I should do that. You're right. But I was like, what if we put a pottery wheel in the sunroom for you? He's a ceramicist.
Oh, sure.
And then I'll take the whole attic. And he was like, great deal. This is a great deal for me. And then he sees like a bandsaw coming up the stairs and a table saw. And he's like, what is going on? I was like, no, don't worry about it. So
what's your access to the attic as far as getting like heavy machinery up there?
Well, I did some of it, and some of it I employed some nice men to carry up. The bandsaw was the worst. These guys were like, we move refrigerators, this won't be a problem. And I'm like, it's gonna be a problem. It's four stories. You're not gonna like me after this. And it's a Harvey Alpha HW615. It weighs, I think, 800 pounds.
Yeah, it's a big boy.
Yeah, it's a big boy. And
did you check structure, like for where
yes.
it's sitting?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the house was built in 1887. It's one of the first,
oh my,
first few houses in Los Angeles. We're kind of close to Dodger Stadium, and it's a balloon house. Yeah, and everything is wood, but everything is, it was made that long ago, and it was all wood that was brought in by a lumber merchant from Boston, and it's all old growth, like 500. It must have been 500 years old at the time,
Mhm.
So the house has survived all of the earthquakes, all of the whatever, and it's pretty good. Yeah. So the bandsaw is directly over where I sleep. So if anything goes wrong, I take the hit.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and there's nothing. There's a corner which is like my son's room. Is that sort of the house? And there's nothing over there. It's like
Yep, safe.
three pieces of wood.
Yep.
I'm like, gotta keep the kids safe. So.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So, but access is a challenge because everything that comes up here, all the materials, trash coming up and down, it's just all me.
Mhm.
And it occurred to me, I'm 41. It occurred to me now, it's like, this is probably fine for another 10 years. And then I will need to do some other thing. Because, doing the heavy lumber for any bigger project is a real pain in the back.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Well, you just need to put in some sort of elevator, or
I have thought about it.
Outdoor lift, just get up out of the window and up.
Yeah.
Yep.
That would be good. That would be good. The other major thing about having a contained shop is that there's no sort of dust. I can't open the garage door and blow out the shop.
Sure.
So
are there windows up there? I mean,
yeah, there's windows and there's good ventilation.
Okay.
And I just put in every kind of vacuum, and every tool has lines to it, and but that's the biggest sort of ongoing battle, is keeping the dust down.
Yeah, that's always tough.
Yeah, that's always it. Okay, well, I guess LA is just too expensive for you to build a shop somewhere else or down the street or something like that.
Well, no, I got, right at the time I was doing this, these nice guys who have a wood, sort of a community wood shop invited me to go. And I was like, I'll never go. At the time I was like, I have a 2-year-old. I'm not going to leave. So here, when he sleeps through all of the tooling. Basically he goes to bed and I'll come up here at night and the, table saw, whatever, he doesn't care. So it's a real blessing.
You're raising them right. You get them,
exactly. Yeah,
get them adjusted that early.
Yeah. And he comes up here. We make a lot of swords. We do shields. We got all kinds of boy stuff. So we can do all that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, with that, let's not bury the lead here. So, tell us a little bit about your upcoming film. It's titled "I Don't Understand You." So, what's
it's a comedy, kind of scary comedy, I guess, starring Nick Kroll, Andrew Rannells, and Amanda Seyfried. It sort of began based on a real thing that happened to our family when we were in the adoption process for our son.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to spoil anything, but I've seen this film.
Yeah, I did see based on a true story at the bottom, but
it's inspired by. No, I mean, the first act of the movie is basically true.
Okay.
So we had been in the adoption process for a long time, and one of the reasons we wanted to make the movie is, oftentimes, anytime a person who's putting their child up for adoption in a movie is portrayed sort of as a villain or someone who's callous and not making a great decision, and that was so far from our experience. The Wash, our son, his birth mother, kind of the hero of our lives and an amazing person, did the most selfless, lovely, wonderful thing. And so that was sort of how do we talk about this in a fun, interesting way in public, and sort of change that kind of dialogue. And then so the movie's about two guys who are about to go to Italy for their 10th anniversary, and they find out that they have a baby. When they land in Italy, they find out that they've matched with the birth mother and they're expecting a baby. and then their panic sort of manifests into a bunch of crazy stuff where they end up accidentally doing a lot of violence to Italian people. And so, it's very fun and silly and sweet ultimately, but it's a great ride, and it's really fun to watch in a theater. And I suggest you go June 6th and enjoy yourselves.
Yeah.
So this is a wide release, national, international.
National, and then international is held back, and then it will be on Hulu sometime in the late, I don't know, summer or fall.
Okay.
Yeah.
And because the first person I've ever talked to the industry, but I always wonder how like you just mentioned that, like, when it's going to be streaming at this point, like it has a target, and we know that. It's interesting.
So definitely the theatrical is some movies are fun to watch at home. This movie is fun to watch with other people for sure.
Yeah,
it's kind of I can only imagine, because we just watching the screener were like, there was comments all over the board, just like, all my family was like, oh, this my wife said this definitely doesn't look like a low budget film. I'm like, no, I think this is like legit. This is real.
No, it's not. It's not.
My oldest recognized some of the actors. Like it's cool. It's a small cast, but like wide area. Like, how cool was it filmed in Italy, like actual Italy? I don't know.
we spent 6 months in Rome. This is a great grift. It turns out that you can set a movie anywhere. I'm
not sure you want to go to the Italian premiere though.
Yeah. Oh, I'd love to. I'd love to. They love the movie because not to spoil it, but the Americans in the movie make a lot of dumb decisions.
Yes.
And the Italian crew who made the movie with us thought that was hilarious. And appropriate.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, they're like, they're so stupid. It's funny. There's a lot of that. So, but it was truly the best experience, best professional experience for a couple of reasons. One, the producer is a great friend, and so that we're so protected and can kind of do anything we wanted to creatively. And Nick and Andrew, who are the leads in the movie, Nick Kroll and Andrew Rannells, are so funny and so lovely. And this wasn't an easy movie to shoot because it was mostly shot at night. And in Italy, one of the differences in the filmmaking here, you would do something called splits, where your day starts during the day and you end up at night, and you put black curtains over the windows and everybody pretends. In Italy, they protect their meals. Surprise, surprise. So dinner is at dinner time, and they will not do that. So if you're shooting nights, you're shooting from like 7 to 7 or whatever.
Oh, wow.
So it was like 4 or 5 weeks of full nights, which was a really hard thing to do. But everybody was like kind of in a loopy, fun headspace, which made it great to work on.
Was it really raining in the kind of third stage scene, or was that produced rain?
Everything was, all the rain is manufactured in the film.
Okay.
So it was controllable, but not fun for them.
I bet not. It looked pretty horrible.
Yeah. I mean, it's a movie they go through a lot, and they did it with such good spirits and grace. And
awesome.
we're all still friends, which is a great thing coming out of a hard shoot.
Well, that's good.
Like you said, it's like, it's funny and it's quirky, but it holds that uncomfortableness and just slowly escalates it to a certain level before everything kind of breaks. And and then it's uncomfortable again even after that happens. It's very well paced.
Yeah,
really.
But it has a lot of heart to it.
Oh yeah,
I must say.
Yeah,
I must say. And for listeners, it is about a gay couple adopting their son, but it's not a gay movie.
Oh no.
No. Yeah.
It is absolutely a couples movie that where people just get into all kinds of weird situations and things like that, and it is so much fun. It is fun.
Yeah, no, that's like one of the it's interesting because that was one thing that we were very conscious of, David and I, is sort of we made the movie together and wrote it together and directed it together. And a lot of movies with gay characters are about gay characters suffering or having like a real trauma or coming out or something. And this was like, no, we exist in all of these other spaces as well. Like we're happy, we're sad, we're monsters, we're whatever. So in this kind of context, a lot of people come out of the movie are like, oh, that could have been me and my, like I'm that one and my wife is that one.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever, and they're like,
absolutely.
so it was it's kind of it's just about what you would do for your children, which is kind of a universal.
Yes.
It's interesting. I had that thought yesterday. I was like, the first time I held my baby son, a guy I just met, I was like, oh, I'd like mow down a school bus full of people for this little, potato or whatever. And that kind of has a lot to do with the movie. So
Yeah.
That is cool. And I think I might recognize the kid at the end of the movie.
Yeah, that's my boy. That's my son. He's in it. And it was interesting because we were shooting in Italy. There were 7 Americans on the movie and 150-ish Italians. And there's a child an American speaking child in one of the scenes, and we were like, well, we have one and we can get him to do certain things and build a scene around that versus the Italian kids trying to do American dialect is a challenge for a 3-year-old. So it was great and very stressful. He actually worked, I think, the first or second day of the movie, and the Italian crew is like, now what's going on? we have their kid and what's happening? But he did great. He did great and was bribed with lots of popsicles, and it worked out.
And
do
his
you
star is
speak
born, and you start him early, and it'll be hell to pay in 5 years from now.
He really likes it, and David is terrified of that.
I bet.
He really wants to do more. Well, and all of his friends, our friends are actors, and so like he's like, oh, Aunt Amanda's on the television, and you're like, yeah. And you can't explain that that's not normal. You know what I mean? Like, it's just
you're right.
His particular experience. So anyway.
Wild.
Well, cool. Well, so what are your general responsibilities as a director? For instance, what's your day-to-day as far as y'all directing this movie?
Oh my God.
Or is it just herding cats 24/7?
The way I describe directing a movie while you're on set is like being eaten by crows. Which is like everybody needs a piece.
Yeah.
They don't need that much, but they need a little. And that makes it sound not fun, but it's very fun. But it's kind of like, I guess the best sort of analogy would be like contracting a house where you have, being the GC of a renovation or something, because you're in charge of, you have to know a little about everything, and you have to manage the budget, and you have to manage the time, and you have to deliver a cohesive vision of what it is. And having renovated a house, it's pretty similar. It's pretty similar to that. And, hopefully with fewer lawsuits and plumbing problems, but you're always responsible for telling a story that people will relate to and will mean something to them beyond the 2 hours that they're watching the movie. And that's the real North Star and challenge, is trying to make something that feels at the same time very specific to itself and very relatable to a lot of people you will never meet, but hopefully please.
Yeah.
So it's a cool job and a very strange job as well.
Yeah, I mean, you say like it's like being eaten by crows. Like, it's because you not in this case you were writer and director, but even if you're just a director, you're the one that is the ultimate decider for the flow and portray, what the story in your vision, right?
Yeah,
and so everything rides on you, right? In that way.
Yes, absolutely. And you are to blame if it's bad.
And
like that's
you
it.
Take the fall all the same. Yeah.
If it's great, it's everybody, and if it's bad, it's you. And that's how it should be. Because it is because you assume a huge amount of responsibility, because you're going to people, like you said, it doesn't look like a cheap movie. Like when you're going to people and asking them for like multi-millions of dollars, that feels like something to do, like you feel that responsibility viscerally,
Yeah.
which is again another reason to like love to come up here and make furniture where the downside risk is, oops, I fucked up that board. Like
Right.
it has a different level of risk to make furniture.
Yeah.
So
I don't have a base of reference of what that is to ask somebody for so much support and then absolutely mentally, physically have to pay that off. Like you have to make it make sense.
Yeah.
It
is really wild. And also the thing that you start with often, I mean, and this film has ended up being very similar to the script. Many times when you're making a film, it ends up something completely different because of the way you cast the movie or just how you shot or whatever. And then, you're still responsible to be in relationship to these people whose investment you're, the shepherd of through this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it works out great for them and sometimes it doesn't. And, you have to be, luckily on this movie, everybody's, like I said, really close still. And we're all working on new stuff together, which is great. And
awesome.
Yeah. Well, good. Because my wife's comment was, hey, we need a part 2,
Oh, yeah. No, they go to Denmark. That's my pitch. Like,
yeah.
Denmark. Fantastic.
Yeah, when we wrapped the movie, we went to Copenhagen and we were like, oh, we could be here for 6 months. This would be great. so yeah, we're working on that one, but we'll see.
Well, fantastic. Well, so now what do you do now? So you're in basically the distribution and marketing part of this, right? As far you've already sold it to be distributed, but you're now fully entrenched into just marketing, right?
Yeah. I mean, the movie, I think we locked the movie last year in October or something. End of last year or end of 23, excuse me. We locked it in end of 23. Wow. It premiered at South by in March of that year, sold, and then the release is happening now in this year. So
has it been touched since the initial release in South by? Like no retouching, no re-editing, nothing. No. It's the same film that was seen there is now sold and going to be interesting.
Yeah, it gets like final mixes and stuff like that, but it's not nothing creative is touched. In this case, I was lucky, it was interesting because unfortunately one of our dogs died while we were cutting the movie. And then we got to it was awful. And then we got to the mix of the movie, and he was like my dog, like very much like my dog. And David would make this joke, like if the two of us were drowning, like and Brian could save one of us, like goodbye and I loved you.
I'll see you later. I'll take the dog.
And so which he's right, but anyway, so like there was a month of the cut which he was like, I was a zombie, and we got into the mix and I finally kind of woke up and I was like, what, this is in the movie, like what? Then we made a couple of changes like right at the last moment, but back to but then it was just all smooth sailing since, and it was a great team. And it's really lucky. Like this was one of those jobs where you're like, it will be hard to replicate this amount of fun in another, even with sort of unlimited resources, just because the people were right. Mm-hmm. And the Italian crew was so lovely and so welcoming, and that everywhere we went they would like sneak us into the best thing, or like they knew I was into wood stuff, so they'd be like, show me some special furniture gallery, whatever, where we're nearest location. And it was really sweet, lovely. All of the hospitality that you would expect out of the sort of Italian culture was there in abundance. It was great.
Awesome. Well, I will say this, just to as this episode drops, our episode with Frank Straza will be out, and it's about his trip to Italy. So if you go back to Italy, he knows all the places you need to go. So
I was following that trip on Instagram.
Wasn't it cool?
Amazing stuff. Yeah, but that would be the thing there. You'd wander into some restaurant, and one of the tables would look like it was from 1830 or something, and
it might be older than that.
And it was just like this amazing access to history that in Los Angeles we do not have.
I remember when you sent us a screener, you said, "Hey, be on the lookout for the main location. There's a antique Italian birthing stool." And
Yeah.
I got so involved in the movie, I had to go back and look for it because I
Damn it, now
totally
I can
forgot
rewatch
about it.
it. Oh, man.
I even told my wife as we were starting, in the main location, there's an Italian birthing stool I need to be on the lookout for. Totally
Yeah,
forgot about it till the end of the
That's
movie.
the takeaway. Yeah, that's good. I'm glad you forgot about it. Yeah, no, it's cool. They bring you when you're looking at props and stuff. They bring you like, here's 5 tables. Which one do you like? And here's whatever. And they brought this thing, and they're like, we like this shape, but we don't know what it is. I was like, it's a birthing stool, So it was like this old. It looked like something that Chris Schwarz would take a picture of in a museum and
Sure.
kind of spend a year thinking about.
In a coffee, you said chair nerd.
No, chair hero.
Oh, there you go.
But yeah, no, I mean, like, build a birthing stool from bullshit. I'm looking forward to that book.
Yes.
They're really fun. But yeah, it was super cool. And people who didn't, you're tired on set, and people just sit down on the set sometimes. And if you sat on that chair in the wrong way, you could fall right through it. So it's a real, real hazard sometimes.
Well, cool. Well, let's switch gears, I guess. But before we do that, tell us one more time, name of the movie and when it comes out.
I Don't Understand You, starring Nick Kroll, Andrew Rannells, Amanda Seyfried, coming out June 6th in theaters in America.
Well, cool. Well, yeah, let's do switch gears. Let's get back into a little woodworking, specifically chair making. Now, that's where we first met. Is you got into chair making. So, how did you get into chair making?
Got your jig right there, bud. How did I get into it? I think, you know what? I think this might sound weird, but I think chairs and guitars are kind of very similar in terms of they're like an object that is held on your body or holding you up. And I had, I was just building this shop to do some things in my house and do guitars. And I was like, I wonder if I could do a chair. And I'd been looking and thinking about it. And I saw this like very like kind of chunky, kind of low lounger, look kind of Danishy or something. And I was like, I wonder if I could figure out how to build that. And then I just spent a while just kind of drawing it and figuring it out, and then did it, and kind of came downstairs with this giant heavy chair. And David was like, that's cool, but now I'm like, make one that's like less like this, not like 100 pounds. Because I did it like full 8-quarter ash, and just like it's a mountain of a chair. And so I was like, okay, make another one. And I just sort of fell into it and really liked it. And I had Chris's stick chair book. I had bought that, I don't know when even, but I had it in my like little wood shop library. And I started reading it, and I was so taken with his writing style and just the sort of like, it's very clear who he is on the page, which is great. And that's how we try and write, is like express who you are through what you do. And so I was like, I wonder if I could do that. I wonder if that looks harder somehow. But I loved the sort of like, if you squint at one of those chairs, the kind of shape of them is so iconic and cool. I was like, all right, I'm going to figure it out. And, I probably wrote a couple of people annoying Instagram messages being like, can I do this? Should I do this? Which is like often something I will bother other people with my decision-making process. And was encouraged by many nice folks. And so then I just chopped up some wood and started at it. And, it went poorly, and then slightly better, right. And now it goes okay.
All right.
Yeah. So that was kind of the beginning of chairs. And and my son asked me for he wanted a tiger table. He saw some tiger wood in my shop that I was like, oh, maybe I'll do a guitar back and sides out of this. And he was like, nope, that's for me. Sort of claimed that. And so I was like, okay, let's do the design together. And we did these kind of cool chairs out of like Wengi and this kind of Goncalo Alves beautiful wood, and made him a little table for, his size at the time, and a couple of chairs for his buds. And that was really rewarding too. So then it was sort of like a green light for, if you can do that, then why don't you build this bookcase? And, I sort of like stacked all of the projects, all the things I wanted to build for the house into a kind of like skill building order, and that's one of those sort of director skills of like
Yeah.
see the whole field. Like, you don't have to do everything in one bite. Like, just how do you eat a horse, like one bite at a time or whatever. So yeah, and then then we had this beautiful dining table that some friends made in Brooklyn when we lived out there, and we didn't have any chairs for it, and David was like kept threatening to buy ugly chairs, and I was like, I can't have it, like I won't do it. And he was like, no, we'll just go get some DWR or whatever fabric dining chair. I was like, absolutely not, I can't. So then I like showed him some drawings of different ideas, and then he picked, of course, the hardest one, and then those chairs were like a real nightmare to do. So that kept me busy and learning, because it was like different kinds of joints and stuff I had never tried, and I did it out of this like very showy, beautiful kind of fiddleback walnut, but then anytime you'd cut it or look at it, it would move and warp, and I was like, it was going out of my head with these chairs. But now they're done and they're great, and I love them, and I will never make them ever again.
So how many did you make?
I made 8. And,
wow.
And well, I tried to do 6, and then I was told 8 was the number that were ordered.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Well, I remember I asked Pete Galbert one time why I don't even think he makes any, very, very few things on commission now. And usually it's a collaboration with somebody. But at the time he was making rocking chairs. I go, well, why are you making rocking chairs? Because no one orders more than 2 at the max.
Yeah, you're not going to make a table set of rocking chairs.
Oh man, it was nuts, because if they were off a little, you'd be like, got to redo it, and at that point you're, however many hours, days, weeks into that particular set, and it was a real nightmare. But I had all that, like that's what happens. You buy beautiful wood, you got to make yourself nice chairs. What's going on?
Yep.
So
well, that's cool. Well, so tell us about some of your favorite woodworking projects. So you mentioned these chairs. Are there any others that you have in mind?
Yeah, I mean, I love building that table for my son, because he takes such pride in it, which is great.
That's cool.
And really, really likes it. And he, I think the other one I would say is we like to cook, and so I made a sort of like gigantic like cutting board, actually out of the offcuts of the dining chairs, because I had so much broken, damaged walnut left on the floor. So that one is special, just because it matches, and I it was so much easier after doing the chairs. It was like a breeze, and it was so nice to do that. And then I made this oak chair up here. I brought up to show y'all. I did this for David, his office, so I made him that, and a oak sort of work table to go with it.
Yeah, it's a nice Gibson Irish chair, so that's cool.
Yeah,
I haven't made one of those yet, but they look comfy.
It was super cool. I did, I forgot to hit all of the legs with a hammer ahead of time, as Chris suggests, and one of them broke off, and that was that was kind of like a cool challenge to be like that deep. The chair was basically finished, and I snapped the leg myself by sitting in it, which is always a great feeling.
Oh boy.
And then I had no one to blame, unfortunately. So then it was like, okay, well, now what? And figured out how to replace it with minimal damage, and that was a good learning exercise as well. So. Yeah,
that always is. I remember something similar happened to me one time. It was basically I drilled and reamed a hole at the wrong angle, the exact opposite angle. I went from the back instead of coming from the front, exact opposite. I was so ticked off at myself, but then I said, hey, I'm going to learn something on how to fix this. And and once I fixed it, you could barely tell that I drilled everything and reamed everything wrong. In fact, you had to look at it from the underside even to know. So
I'm for the listeners at home. I'm grabbing out one of my guitars here. This is the guitar I made up with Sergey, one of the two of them, and I had a router jump on me on the edge of the neck, and
I see
it
that,
took
Mark.
out I don't know, let's say 2.5 inches by 1/4 inch right along the edge, and I managed to patch it pretty well. You'd have to really look for it to see it, but if that made this like my favorite guitar, because it's not being great out the gate that is
Yeah.
impressive to me. It's the repair is nice.
Yeah.
So anyway, this
Beautiful.
is it's
That's
Oh
good.
yeah.
That's a nice.
Oh my
So
God.
so do you play
Oh,
much?
beautiful.
I am a awful player.
Oh my! But you make guitars. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
I'm so terrible. I would rather do almost anything for people than play the guitar. You know what I mean? Like attempt any skill rather than do it, because I'm so embarrassingly bad at it. But yeah, I loved making them, and it's a super rewarding, very difficult, patient process. But everyone should try instrument building. It's super fun. Super fun.
Yeah. I've seen some of them, and it always amazes me. Yeah, like you said, how precise everything is. It's more like scale model building than it is woodworking in some respects.
Precise. The
Yeah.
tonality, everything is just right.
Yeah. And the difference between Sergey, that my teacher said something that really resonated with me, and I think is one of the reasons that I like building stuff, which is like, you can go and buy a facsimile of a guitar that's assembled in a factory, that's been CNC cut or laser cut, and assembled by people who are being paid, nominal money to put it together. Or you can buy like a handmade instrument made as it would have been made 500 years ago.
Sure.
You know, basically with the same sort of stuff, and that there is a real difference. And some of the there is like a moment right now in sort of custom guitar building where you have these incredible hand builders, Michael Bastian, Tom Sands, like they're incredible makers making these amazing instruments, and you sort of like see the difference in craft, and you're like, wow, any woodworker I think would be blown away, like seeing some of their work up close. If you ever get the opportunity to go to like a boutique guitar showcase or store or whatever, it's just a wonderful way to look at crazy joinery. And also to flash back and be like, these are held together with a mortise and tenon. And I remember being like, oh no, a mortise and tenon, how will I ever accomplish this? and being terrified of doing one. And now, you just sort of like bang them out or whatever. But it was like it's all of those. I find like the coolest thing about this craft and practice, or whatever you want to call it, is just that you set up these kind of artificial like tests for yourself of like, oh, I don't know how I could do this one thing, and I'm only through just failing a bunch can you figure it out.
Yeah, for sure.
So well, cool. Well, so what kind of styles influence your work? You mentioned Chris Wars and stuff, so obviously some of that vernacular furniture's moved into your repertoire.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I love this sort of like of that style. I love the kind of like minimalism to it, or sort of, it's not showy per se, but it's still sort of like beautifully constructed and really thoughtful. I guess left to my own devices, kind of like the stuff that I make, I think is more kind of brutalist or sort of like very straightforward if it's something that I'm designing. Kind of heavier, squarer, not delicate, not kind of curvy, and maybe sort of influenced through like, kind of more Swedish, Danish, kind of like an aesthetic of that kind of thing. But I also am like young enough into this to not fully have it figured out. You know what I mean? Like I love like trying this haberdashery cabinet is in a style I never would have on my own been like, I'll make that. And it's been so rewarding and interesting to do something lighter with curves. And I'm like, I would never have thought to do it. so it's it's kind of a wonderful thing to be able to sample and also to have access through your guys' show and the internet and YouTube to all these different kinds of just to see other people doing stuff and immediately like take a point of view about like, oh, I would never do that, or of course I would, or see somebody like Frank Straza and be like, I could never do that. I would love to, but I, unfortunately, I will not live for another 300 years. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
well, Frank will tell you it's just one little small step at a time.
Yep. One bite of the horse. Yeah, that's how it goes.
Now, have you gone to any of the green and green stuff since you live close to Pasadena?
Yeah. I mean, yes, of course, I've seen all of those houses. I haven't gone to the Maloof house yet, though. I really want to do that. But yeah, I mean, all of that stuff is so beautiful, and so the craft of it is so clear. Yeah, and I like that they don't. I like that it never hides. It never sort of like hides itself. It's always kind of present in the space. And shows off a little bit. Yeah. I like that very much.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough. They had a Woodworking in America back in the day there, and I was able to get a behind the ropes tour with one of the guys that I can't pronounce his name. It's a Greek name that has a lot of vowels and consonants in it. But anyway, anyway, he does a lot of the work there, or it did at that time. But he was able, since he was he did a couple lectures there at the show, but he was able to do it behind the scenes for a tour. So we went into the to the house there, and the first thing they gave us was flashlights.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice flashlights, and we were able to get really, really close. It wouldn't let us touch or photograph anything, but we could get right up there, and it was amazing. And then we left the place, and we looked around. We went, oh, they're just like modern builders. This is a whole subdivision they build.
Yep.
Yeah. Of nothing but green and green houses, one after the other.
Yeah. I mean, it's been interesting because we've owned this house for 20 years. This Victorian we live in, and this one, the house next to us, were built for two sisters who were in 1887, and so we've pulled the house apart and fixed and repaired and whatever and redone the windows and done so it's like we've seen all of this kind of that era of woodwork, and it's incredible what they did, but also frankly scary in the because the 26 on center beams and various things that were, I guess, tolerable at the time, which now are scary. But it's the thing that I'm always surprised about whenever we like rip up the floor and take a look at stuff is like just the like giant redwood planks that are so beautiful that you're like, oh, if I ever tore my entire house apart, I'd have an incredible pile of wood.
Yeah, I can make some nice furniture with all this.
Yeah. I don't think it's quite worth it, but it might be one day. You never know.
Oh, that's cool. Well, so you're a woodworker. You're in the film business. Do you know anybody else does that same kind of thing? You mentioned your husband's into some other crafts, ceramics and stuff like that. Yeah.
I don't. The truth of the matter is, I don't know anybody other than the guys at Eagle Tools, which is our great tool store here. A couple of guys there make stuff. But I don't really have any woodworking friends exactly. I have a lot of people who are like super interested in what I'm up to, or like, would you make me a coffee table or whatever? But I know Nick Offerman has his shop, but I haven't gone over there yet. But incredible guy by all accounts, and incredible woodworker too. And I mean, it's part of what I like about it is that it's sort of away from what I do. You know what I mean? It's like it's
in that way.
And there's it's kind of it's kind of like a liminal space where I can just kind of be, think big thoughts and kind of try and improve my skills and use my hands to do something other than, wait on the phone and for somebody to make the next one or whatever. So, it's a really cool practice. I'm much calmer doing this than beforehand, for sure. The stress reducer. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. This is a pharmaceutical woodworking podcast.
There you go.
Exactly.
There you go.
Exactly. Well, fantastic. Well, before we let you go, I wouldn't be remiss if I didn't ask you about any other activities that you like to do besides filmmaking and woodworking.
I repair the bounce house a lot. I do a lot of that, or son pokes holes in it sometimes. What else? I cook. I like, we cook a lot of Italian food here. I don't, yeah, but that's it. If I have free time, I'm up here, which is great. Yeah.
Cool. Well, with that, let's move on to our fortnightly beer choices. So I'll start us off. I'm just having house beer Guinness. So Sean, hopefully you're doing something a little bit more interesting.
A little bit, but very local. I've got a variation on a local brewery. Inside the Five is a brewery that opened up here in my town. He is a former, I think he was the punter for the Dolphins at some point, and now he's here. So Inside the Five is a football term that if you punt, you want to drop it inside the five. So they have a normal beer called Sunshine Sky, which is an orange wheat, kind of like Blue Moon, but not the same concoction. But this I just saw in the store, and my son actually noticed. I just picked up the it's a 4-pack of tall cans. And my oldest son he's 21, and he's like, "What's different? That's like a pink purple." I'm like, I actually didn't notice that. I just grabbed it. I'm like, oh, okay. But this is the passion fruit orange guava wheat ale. So the POG
Wow.
Sunshine Sky. It's really good. Soft citrus, just a nice local. I mean, again, I don't think they distribute. I'm sorry, guys. Yeah. I'll see if I can send you some. But it's really good. It's refreshing. Not light. I don't think it's not heavy, but it's very flavorful. You get a lot of those different citrus tones. It's very nice. Brian,
Cool.
how about you?
All right. So I don't drink, but I brought LA's favorite carbonated water, which I drink about 8 gallons of a day.
Oh,
Topo
boy.
Chico.
Oh,
the one
yeah.
and only.
Oh, yeah, Topo Chico. Yeah.
Yeah. My wife's favorite.
Yep. They can't be beat. And we stock it at the house. So if you ever roll through and are thirsty, pop on in.
All right.
Fantastic. Well, so Brian, where can folks find you on the interwebs and find out more about your movie?
The movie's Instagram is at I Don't Understand You Movie. My woodworking stuff is at _liminal, LIMINAL _object on Instagram. And my other Instagram is just my kid doing karate and stuff. So less interesting, less relevant.
So let's move on to feedback. What do we got there, Sean?
Yeah. So from episode 551 with Mike Pekovich, his 5-question episodes, Sivich, our friend of the show, said this was great reading his book on my break and hearing his story while I worked. Thanks, guys. So, hey, glad to help you out in your shop time. It's awesome. And from episode 553, Luke Barnett's show, Jeff Wyatt said, best interview ever. Amazing. Thank you, Jeff. And he said, I really enjoyed it, which is awesome. Jeff, Luke, I don't know, maybe just love Luke's work. Who knows? Also,
yes, Jeff does know Luke. Just
okay,
a little
fair.
bit, just a little bit.
A little bit. So Chris Craven Pottery said, so proud of you. Happy to know you and see your growth and success. And I can absolutely second that motion. That, fantastic. And Clark Griswold 7374 said, Luke, good luck on the podcast. I'm sure it'll be a spectacular show. We also wish you the same luck. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, it's nice for Clark to, listen to the podcast.
yeah, that's awesome.
And that just about wraps it up for this show. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the show on the podcatcher of your choice. Just search for the Modern Woodworkers Association. And while you're there, please leave us a review. You can follow us on Instagram at MWA_podcast. And if you'd like to support the podcast, go over to patreon.com/MWA podcast. But the best thing you can do is tell a friend. Word of mouth goes a long way in sharing our discussion.